Welcome back to the deep dive. We're here to, unpack the news that really counts, turning that pile of sources into something clear, something useful for you. And today, wow, we are diving headfirst into a story that just blew up in Washington, D.C. I mean, a confrontation so direct, it's genuinely unprecedented. It's already sending ripples through the financial world and, frankly, the foundations of U.S. governance. This is more than just a headline. It feels like one for the history books. We've really dug through our sources to bring you the full picture here.
Yeah.
So our mission today, simple. We want to break down the core of this huge event, really understand the arguments coming from both sides, and figure out why it matters so much, not just for finance, but, for the basic structure of power in the U.S.
Indeed. And it's happening right now, August 26th, 2025. Something unfolded today in D.C. that, well, we haven't seen anything quite like it in over 100 years. It's a direct, very forceful clash between the White House and, well, a cornerstone of America's independent financial system, the Federal Reserve.
Okay, right. Let's jump straight in then. For anyone just catching up, what was the actual bombshell announcement that kicked all this off today?
Well, the day really started with a pretty stark public statement from President Trump. He used his social media account to announce he had removed Federal Reserve Board member Lisa Cook from her job. And this wasn't, a leak or speculation. It was very public, very direct, sent immediate shockwaves, as you can imagine.
Removed. Just that word that carries so much weight, especially talking about the Fed. Give us some historical context. How unusual is this, really?
Oh, it's incredibly unusual. That's what's so fascinating and, frankly, significant here. The history matters. Our sources are really clear on this. It's the absolute first time in the Fed's entire 111-year history that a president has just dismissed a sitting board member. So this isn't just, a regular personnel shuffle. It's a major moment. It directly challenges decades of how things have been done and raises some fundamental questions about, well, independence and the balance of power.
Right. It tests that whole idea of the Fed being separate from politics.
Exactly. That independence is, it's a core principle, but it relies on political will, on legal understanding. This forces everyone to look at where the lines of presidential power actually are when that principle is challenged so openly.
And doing it via social media, posting the actual letter to Dr. Cook.
Yeah.
That definitely added to the drama. Made it very public, very fast.
It's a very deliberate move, yes. Ensured maximum immediate awareness.
Okay, so he didn't just announce the removal. He gave reasons. What was the official justification? Why this move? Why Dr. Cook? And why now?
Right. So in the letter President Trump sent to Dr. Cook, he laid out his case. He stated very clearly that the Federal Reserve Act gives him the authority to remove a board member for cause. Oh, now, that phrase for cause, that's absolutely critical. It immediately flags this as, well, almost certainly heading for a legal fight. Trump's argument is pinned specifically on what he alleges is Dr. Cook's financial misconduct.
For cause. Okay, that term pops up legally, but what's it mean specifically for someone appointed to an independent body like the Fed? What usually counts?
That's a really important question, and yeah, that's where the legal arguments are going to clash. Usually for cause means things like proven misconduct, maybe incompetence, or neglecting duties directly tied to the job. But for presidential appointees at independent agencies, there's legal history here, like the Humphreys executor case back in the 30s. That set a very high bar. It usually requires a clear link to their official duties. So Trump's argument, focusing on alleged personal financial stuff, is really pushing the boundaries of how that's traditionally been understood. That's a key point here for the legal side.
Okay, pushing the boundaries.
Yeah.
So walk us through the specifics. What exactly did the president accuse Dr. Cook of doing in that letter?
Certainly. The letter got quite specific. It claimed Dr. Cook made misrepresentations in mortgage contracts. And the core allegation was that she signed documents saying 2 different properties were her primary residence, all within just 2 weeks. That's a very precise and serious claim in the financial world.
2 primary residences in 2 weeks.
Okay, yeah. On the surface, that sounds tricky to explain. Why is that specific point so serious in mortgage terms? What's the issue?
It's serious because lenders give different, usually better terms, like lower interest rates for a primary home compared to, say, a second home or an investment property. The thinking is you're less likely to default on the place you actually live.
Right.
So claiming a place as your primary residence when it isn't to get those better terms, well, that can be seen as mortgage fraud. It's about misleading the lender.
And the president didn't mince words about how he saw these alleged actions. The language was pretty strong, extremely strong. He stated, and this is a direct quote from the source material we looked at, "It cannot be presumed that you were unaware of your first commitment when you made your second. It is impossible that you intended to fulfill both." Then he escalated, accusing her directly of deceptive and potentially criminal behavior related to finance. His argument was that the public needs total confidence in Fed officials, given their huge responsibilities, setting interest rates affecting everyone, overseeing banks. He argued this alleged conduct destroys that trust.
Okay.
And he wrapped up the letter saying her conduct was gross negligence, questioned her competence as a regulator, and declared that the faithful execution of U.S. law requires your immediate removal. Very direct, very final.
So a clear accusation from the president, a clear justification laid out. But as you'd expect, this isn't a one-sided story. How did Dr. Cook react? Did she just accept it?
Oh, not at all. Her response was immediate and forceful. It signals pretty clearly, as many experts are saying, that a legal fight is almost certain. She stated flatly that President Trump does not have the constitutional or legal authority to remove her. She called the decision unlawful and without any legal basis. And she said, again quoting directly, President Trump alleged for cause removal without cause under the law. So she's directly attacking his legal reasoning, saying his definition of cause just doesn't cut it legally for a Fed governor.
Right. And she went further, didn't she? She made her position very clear.
Yes, even more defiantly, she declared, I will not resign. I will continue to perform my duties to help the American economy, as I have since 2022.
So a total standoff. The president says she's out. She says she's staying, and his action is illegal. This didn't just materialize today, though, did it? There was some buildup.
You're absolutely right. If we zoom out a bit, this wasn't completely out of the blue. Our sources show there was a definite lead up to this, kind of a brewing storm. Specific allegations, calls for her resignation, they've been simmering for at least the week before today's big news.
Ah, okay. So this isn't the first time President Trump has gone after Dr. Cook or these specific claims. What's the timeline leading up to today?
Exactly. Just last week, the president had already publicly called for her to resign. He did it by sharing a Bloomberg News report on social media. And that report detailed how the director of the FHFA, that's the Federal Housing Finance Agency, a man named Bill Pulte, had asked Attorney General Pam Bondi to investigate Dr. Cook about a mortgage application. So yeah, these allegations were already out there, being actively pushed, and clearly had the president's attention.
The FHFA director, Bill Pulte. What's his role here? Why was he involved and calling for an investigation?
Pulte's involvement is pretty key to how this escalated. The FHFA oversees Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, the huge government-backed entities that guarantee most U.S. mortgages. So their director cares a lot about mortgage integrity. Pulte, who was appointed by President Trump, said publicly he thought Cook's alleged actions were unacceptable for a financial regulator and needed the AG to look into it. This public call to the Attorney General, also a Trump appointee, was a clear sign of pressure building. And it's worth noting, Pulte had already been criticizing Dr. Cook on social media before this official request.
So the groundwork was being laid, the claims were public. How had Dr. Cook responded before today when these first surfaced?
She had addressed them previously, well before today's firing. She stated the claims related to something from 4 years before she even joined the Fed board in 2022. She also sort of framed them as being blown up on social media, particularly by Director Pulte. Back when those initial calls for her resignation came out, she was very firm. No intention of resigning over questions raised, as she put it in a tweet. So her current defiance isn't new. It tracks with her previous stance. She clearly believes these allegations are either wrong or certainly not grounds for removal.
Right. This whole thing, it just feels like it ignites a massive crisis between the White House and the Fed, an institution that's, famously set up to be independent of politics.
Yeah.
This goes way beyond just one person.
Precisely. That independence, especially for managing monetary policy, it's absolutely vital for economic stability globally, too. The Fed needs insulation from short-term political wins to make difficult decisions raising rates, regulating banks that might be unpopular but necessary. Without that independence, you risk policy being driven by elections, not economics, which could lead to, inflation or instability. For you, the listener, understanding this is really key to seeing how the U.S. system of checks and balances works and how it can get seriously strained. This event challenges that independence like nothing we've seen in generations.
And when we say Fed independence, it's not just interest rates, right? What other crucial jobs does the Fed do? They could be at risk if that independence gets shaky.
Excellent point. Yes, their main job is stable prices and maximum employment, often through interest rates. But they also act as the lender of last resort vital in a crisis. And they regulate banks big time, protecting the system from too much risk. If president could just easily fire governors for reasons outside that very narrow for-cause standard, well, politics could seep into all of it. Decisions on bank mergers, crisis response, even the currency's integrity could become political. That would seriously damage market confidence, destabilize things.
Okay, so where does this go next? Cook says she's staying. Trump says she's fired. Sounds like it's heading straight to court.
Yeah.
What are the legal options here? What arguments will we likely hear?
Yeah, the courts are definitely the next arena. Dr. Cook will almost certainly sue in federal court. She'll likely ask for an injunction in order to stop her removal and confirm she's still a Fed governor. Her lawyers will argue the president overstepped his constitutional and legal authority. They'll point straight back to that Humphreys executor case, arguing the power to remove heads of independent agencies is very limited, needing specific cause tied to official duties. They'll say alleged personal financial issues, even if true, just don't meet that super high legal bar for removing someone in a role designed specifically for independence.
And the president's side, the Justice Department.
Well, the DOJ, representing the president, will likely push for a wider view of presidential power over appointees. They might argue for cause is more flexible than Cook's side claims. They could argue that the integrity of a top financial regulator is directly relevant to her job fitness, even if the alleged misconduct was personal. They might also look for arguments within the specific wording of the Federal Reserve Act itself. It's going to be a really fascinating constitutional showdown about executive power and these independent agencies.
Beyond the legal drama, what about the immediate fallout? Financial markets, America's image globally,
Yeah.
other independent agencies watching this, what are the ripple effects?
Oh, the implications are huge. And on multiple levels, short term, you could definitely see more market jitters, more volatility. Investors hate uncertainty and a direct hit on Fed independence. That's major uncertainty. We might see things like U.S. Treasury bond yields twitching upwards, maybe investors demanding a bit more return, a political risk premium to hold U.S. debt. The dollar's value could also fluctuate if global confidence in U.S. institutions takes a knock.
So immediate market reactions. What about the longer-term takeaway for the economy and markets?
In the long run, the big thing isn't just the immediate wobble. It's how this kind of fight introduces a new, hard-to-measure risk. If the president's removal action ultimately stands, it fundamentally changes how the Fed is perceived. It could seem more vulnerable to political influence, and that might make it harder for the Fed to do its job effectively fighting inflation, managing downturns, if people start thinking its decisions are political, not purely economic.
And it sets a precedent, doesn't it? If a president can fire a Fed governor this way, what does that mean for heads of other independent bodies? The SEC, FTC, EPA, even the CFPB.
Absolutely. This echoes far beyond the Fed. Every independent agency head in Washington is watching this very closely. If Trump's view of for cause wins out in court, it could massively expand presidential power to remove appointees across the board from agencies designed specifically to be independent. That would be a fundamental shift in the balance of power, pulling more authority into the White House, potentially weakening the checks designed to keep politics out of areas needing impartial expertise or long-term thinking. It's like a potential earthquake for how U.S. governance is structured.
Wow. Just an incredible unfolding story. We've broken down how a U.S. president took this truly unprecedented step against a Fed board member, using specific financial claims as the reason, and we've heard how that board member instantly pushed back, calling it illegal, vowing to stay. It's a real head-on collision between the executive and, well, a pillar of financial independence.
Yeah, this deep dive really shows it's not just political theater. It's raising fundamental questions about where presidential power ends and where the independence of crucial institutions begins. That definition of for cause here and the whole idea of executive power over bodies like the Fed, it's going to be intensely debated legally, politically, publicly. The precedent set here could echo for years.
Indeed, and for you, our listener, it really leaves us with a big question to think about. In a time when trust in institutions is already kind of fragile, what's the long-term effect on public confidence, confidence in financial regulators and the independence of government bodies? Regardless of how this specific fight ends, how might this shape perceptions, both here and abroad, about the stability of U.S. governance? Definitely something to keep mulling over as this story develops.